Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we're talking about everything you need to know to dominate Deadpool's Diner 3.0. Diner's been gone for a while, so I'm going to do a quick refresher of the mode. You may have seen a few days ago, I did an overview about what has changed in the Diner. So if you're familiar with Deadpool's Diner and the changes that are coming as a result of watching that, you might want to skip ahead because this is going to be more of a recap, and then we're going to get into the decks that I think are worth playing to do well in Diner. Deadpool's Diner has been gone for a while, so if you don't remember it, or maybe you weren't around when this mode initially released in its first or second iteration, here's everything you need to know about how it works. Diner's unique twist to the snap formula involves the snap mechanic. So basically, instead of betting cubes, you are betting bubs, a currency that you will naturally have in the mode, which regenerates over time as you lose them. And that's what you are wagering each game and how your reward track is going to be measured. And another unique thing about the mode is that it allows you to snap multiple times. So you could snap on, let's say, turn 2, and then snap again on turn 3 to double again, and a third time on turn 4 or later. There have been some pretty big changes to how the Diner works though, if you haven't already heard. Previously, stakes would auto double on turn 5 and turn 6. That does not happen anymore. And now you're only risking the bubs that you wager and you increase. So essentially, if your opponent snaps to increase their potential bub earnings and you lose, you only lose what you put in. You don't lose more for your opponent doubling their stakes. And I think that is one of the better changes they've made to the mode, as previously, this mechanic kind of encouraged more aggressive retreating, which I think made for less satisfying gameplay overall. So that's a really nice change to the mode in my opinion. And I think it will do a lot to make it feel a lot less stressful than it has been in the past. They've also lowered the number of tables significantly down to 4, which really does consolidate not only the queue times, but the amount of options you have when you're leveling up your bubs and how many you want to bet each match. I'll have some information on the screen here where you can see the bub refresh rates, the tables, the reward track, all that kind of stuff. And the Diner is going to be running for 1 week. In the past, I think it's run for 2, but this time it's only 1. So make sure to get those Diner games in if you want to earn the new Series 4 card Danger before it ends on September 25th. The last major change that has been made to Diner is the addition of nachos. These are essentially the shop currency for the mode. There is still a rewards track that levels up as you get bubs, but that's not the only place you get rewards for the mode. The new card and many other shiny rewards will be available in the Diner shop, which are purchasable with nachos that you earn throughout playing the mode. And they have added some additional quests that are based on snapping. So by getting those done, you should earn more nachos, which will give you more currency to get those rewards. Overall, as someone who wasn't a huge fan of Deadpool's Diner in its earlier iterations, I think the changes they've made are really good and should make it significantly more fun for players than it was in the past. The most important thing to know about this mode in terms of being effective at it is identifying your snap conditions. Because you can snap 3 times, you can earn a lot more bubs than you would normally be able to earn cubes with a normal deck in the normal mode. This is really beneficial for things like combo decks where you know your combo is going to go off and give you a high chance of winning. Usually if your opponent's aware of that, they just leave and you're not getting much more than 2 cubes out of it. But because of the extra snaps in Diner, if you know on turn 1 or turn 2 that you're likely going to have your powerful combo, you can get an early snap in and then follow it up with another snap on the following turn to get way more winnings out of your good hands than you would be able to in normal snap. This mode is all about snapping and retreating, so if you want to get the best gains possible, those are the skills you're going to want to refine the most. With the overview of Diner out of the way, let's take a look at 10 different decks you can play to dominate Deadpool's Diner. I think it's only fitting that starting off we have a Deadpool deck. So we have a good variety of archetypes here. Unlike many of the other modes in Marvel Snap, Deadpool's Diner doesn't actually incentivize playing things that are super different from normal Marvel Snap. A lot of the other modes have unique twists, like High Voltage with the extra energy, or Sanctum making you fight more for specific locations turn to turn, but Diner is pretty much just normal Snap with additional snapping elements added in, and as such, it doesn't require us going super outside the box in terms of deck building. Even with the recent nerf to Killmonger in the Tech OTA, I think this deck is still doing quite well. Moira was a really powerful addition to the Destroy archetype. I think one of the more powerful additions this deck has seen in the last year or so, as well as the buff to Agony a few months ago being really strong as well for getting your Deadpool bigger, faster. And if you haven't heard, there is also a free death variant available right now by using the code capital HHM 2025 in the Marvel Snap web store. But yeah, not too much to say about this one. Destroy has been doing its thing for a very long time. Really, the only new things here are the fact that Moira can enable some pretty spicy plays of getting additional copies of your most valuable cards, like Death, or just giving you more consistent ways to get your enablers to keep blowing your stuff up to pump up those points and get a big null. I think Destroy is far from the best list in the game right now, but I like having it here because it is a very easy deck to learn the snapping patterns of. It's usually pretty obvious when you are in a good position with growing those Deadpools, so you can capitalize on those extra snaps. And it's more on the budget side of things, all things considered. You could make it even more budget by maybe dropping Moira, but I think she's really good to include if you have her. Next up, we have the End of Turn deck. So this is one I played a lot of this season and found to be very powerful and just kind of rewarding to learn. And even with the recent nerfs to tech cards, this deck is running tech cards that really were not hindered by those nerfs, being Mobius, Stardust, and to a lesser extent, Spider-Ham. The gameplay to this deck is fairly straightforward. We have some powerful end of turn effects like Athena, Havoc, The Thing First Steps, and we use Invisible Woman to double up on those powerful end of turn triggers. Our tech cards in Spider-Ham, Mobius, and Stardust give us a variety of ways of dealing with archetypes that would otherwise outpower us, like Mr. Negative or Hela, and the information that Spider-Ham provides can be a useful bonus as well. This deck is pretty stats efficient, running big low-cost bodies like Hydra Bob and Black Cat. Kate and Surge are our best in slot 2-drops, making it easier to trigger our Athena by using the Kate arrows or the Surge cost reduction to fit 2 cards into a turn where we might not otherwise be able to. And then Juggernaut and the Thing are kind of our main closers. The Thing gets really big and kills a card from our opponent, and Juggernaut guarantees you're likely to win a lane that you are ahead in on the final turn, and then use your other big powerful scalers like Athena, Havoc, or the Thing to close out another lane. Then we have a Surtur Scar stuff. This deck has benefited a lot from the fact that Shang-Chi is no longer super popular in the metagame because of the recent OTA. Not too much to say about this one that hasn't already been said. You're just playing big points. You're using Sauron and Zero to get rid of the bad effects you have on cards like Starbrand, Red Skull, and Typhoid Mary. Enchantress is one of the few tech cards where it's still pretty good, even in its nerf form at 5/8 here, and we really do appreciate the redundancy of having another way to get rid of those negative ongoing effects. Zabu helps with our curve quite a bit. We have 3 high impact 4-drops, so using Zabu to enable us to be able to play those cards either a turn earlier or pair them together or with a Starbrand or Surtur on the final turn is really strong, and Surge helps us have a little bit of redundancy with that as well. And then Scar is the obvious payoff of we're playing a bunch of big cards for big points and reducing Scar, so he is really cheap and we can just weave him in on the final turn. There are a few different directions you could go with this deck in terms of like a Nightmare Brew and stuff like that. And I do think there is value to that potentially because since the mode is all about snapping, having scenarios that are hard for your opponent to predict can be beneficial. So you could go in that direction as well. But I think this specific build is a lot more straightforward and easier to learn because of its consistency. Next up, we have Discard. This is another kind of combo focused deck where we're just trying to send 2 lanes to the moon by setting up double Dakins or doubling up on Morbius or just having 2 big scalers like the Collector and Meek and discarding a bunch of swarms with MODOK and Bullseye to get a whole lot of points while taking some points away from our opponent's side. This is another one where I think it's a very straightforward deck, and you can often tell by, turn 3 or turn 4 if you have a good hand that is worth snapping on. Usually, if you can manage to get a hold of Dakin, Bullseye, and either a Frigga or Grandmaster, it can be very hard for your opponent to point you into lanes. But if you don't find the Dakin, you can still get there by pumping up your backup scalers as well, Morbius Collector and Meek. And much like the Surtur deck, this is another one that I think has benefited quite a bit from less tech being around in the metagame. Then we have Clog. So Clog is a deck that I think takes huge advantage of this format because it is essentially a deterministic combo deck. It is very obvious when you are going to win the game as a Clog gamer. Usually you know when your opponent is going to have one of their lanes clogged up, so you have that one locked in, and then all you have to do is find a way to close out a second lane, which will usually involve using Cannonball or a big threat like Galactus. There are alternatives there like Red Hulk or Gore, some people like to play. Really up to you for that final big dude slot. Doesn't matter too much as long as it's a really big card that can win a lane. But the reason a deck like Clog is so much better in this format is because of the multiple snapping. Clog is notorious for being a 2-cube deck. Your opponent often knows when they are dead when you get clogged, and so they leave. They don't stay for those bonus gains. But if you know you have a good Clog hand and you can snap aggressively early, you can get way more benefits out of Clog in Diner than you can otherwise get in the normal snap format. In terms of gameplay, it's pretty straightforward if you've played with or against Clog before, but you're just trying to clog up one lane with some of your negative power cards like Green Goblin, Acid Arrow, Hood, Debris, that kind of stuff. Magic lets you get rid of some bad locations and extend the game longer. Merlin gives you a little bit of added flexibility and ways to transform your otherwise not great things. And then our big closers are Cannonball and Galactus to win the other lane. Since this mode naturally benefits from unpredictable outcomes, well, what's more unpredictable than not even knowing where your own cards are going to land on the final turn? So if gambling is for you, Hela seems to be in a pretty good place right now. The addition of Redshift and Agatha has made the deck remarkably more consistent since you draw an additional card for free, and Cosmic Ghost Rider opened up a little bit of a tech option that otherwise Hela did not really have access to before. The game plan of this deck is very simple. You want to discard your cards with Redshift, Gambit, and Corvus, and then use Hela or Ghost Rider to bring them back. Legion's quite helpful against other potential combo decks or can just give a surprise win based on certain locations. Blink is here for some redundancy in being able to find our Hela if it's hiding in the deck. And since Corvus allows us to ramp, we have the possibility of playing out Hela before turn 6 and then using Odin to reproc her effect to bring back, let's say, another 6-drop other than just our Agatha, or maybe even discard another card with our Corvus, our Gambit, our Redshift, and then bring it back again with Hela. So if you truly want your opponent not to be able to predict your plays, there's probably no better way to do that than with Hela. Then we have Mr. Negative. This is much like Clog, a deck that benefits from the multiple snapping in the format. Negative is often another 2-cube machine because people know when you Mr. Negative and know when you have just unbeatable amounts of power and usually leave, but you can capitalize on that more in this mode because you can get, let's say, oh, I have Mr. Negative, I'll snap on 2, and then I'll snap on 3, and then I'll snap on 4. Boom, profit. So if you enjoy combo decks, this definitely seems to be a format that rewards them, and Negative is one of the best combo decks out there. Really not much to say in terms of gameplay on this one. Negative is one of the most straightforward decks in the game. Use Psylocke and Ravonna to get Negative out a turn early. Magic lets you buy an extra turn if you really need it. Flip your really powerful cards to being free and then spam them on the board for 100 points in multiple lanes. Depending on how the metagame evolves in the Diner, it's possible you could try and sneak a Shang-Chi in this deck in place of something like a Sage or the Taskmaster, but for right off the rip, I think I would go without it, especially because Shang-Chi is a little bit weaker in his current form, but it's definitely an option you could consider if you really want to. The last 2 decks I'm definitely going to classify as a bit more experimental, but they were decks I had a surprising amount of success with in the wake of the Kang change, and naturally, Kang is a card that really benefits the whole idea of making things unpredictable for your opponent, because you just can't realistically predict what your opponent's Kangs are going to be. The first up is a Kang buff Surfer deck. This is one that really surprised me because traditionally Silver Surfer is a deck that you want to have, just the normal 12 cards in to increase your odds of getting the Surfer. And while I'm not going to claim this is the absolute strongest Surfer deck in the game, I do think it is one of the ones with the least amount of predictability, which can be very beneficial in leveraging your snaps. We have lots of ways of buffing up our power with America Chavez, Forge, Okoye, Gwenpool, and Silver Surfer First Steps being able to double up on some of those buffing effects. So it makes it much harder for our opponent to track how much power we're going to be having in any given lane. And then Kang and Copycat give us a lot of unpredictability and things that our opponent just can't reliably know about us being able to do. Brood, Carter, and Shaw give us nice payoffs for all of our buff effects, and Luna gives us a little bit of extra energy, so that way we can get out our 2/3 drops as early as turn 5. I didn't expect much from this deck initially, but I was pleasantly surprised by its performance, and I think because of things like Kang and Copycat, it'll leverage the extra snaps of Diner pretty well. And last but not least, we have a Victoria Hand Kang deck. Now, Victoria does not buff Kang himself. The main synergy here with Kang is with things like Quinjet making him cheaper, and reducing our Mockingbird as our main big threat outside of the Victoria hand buffed stuff. And much like the other deck, this is one that really does benefit from Kang's unpredictability. That's what we're trying to leverage here, as well as the unpredictability of our other card generation cards like Maria Hill, Iron Patriot, and Valentina. Kahori adds a little bit of unpredictability as well, because not even we know where her buffs are going to land on the board, so our opponent obviously won't know that either. We have Moonstone to double up on our powerful ongoing effects, making more reduced cost shenanigans with Quinjet, and more buffs from things like Victoria Hand and Speed. And then Frigga gives us a reliable way of copying to get another Victoria Hand, or maybe a reduced Iron Patriot card or cheap Mockingbird, which can put a lot of points on the board. This is another one where I'm not going to claim this is the absolute 100% best Victoria Hand deck in the game. I'm sure there are other options that might be more consistent with Victoria, but we're trying to use Kang and that unpredictable nature to leverage our snaps more effectively in this mode. That's kind of the point of this style of deck. And I found that to be very effective in my initial playtesting with it. But there we have it. That is our 10 decks to dominate Deadpool's Diner. As always, links will be in the description if you want to grab any of these decks to copy and import into the game for yourself. I'll also be streaming the Diner today if you want to see some gameplay live here on YouTube or over on Twitch. But I'd like to hear from you. What do you think about the Diner, the changes? Are you looking forward to it? Do you have any lists that weren't featured here that you're excited to try? I'd love to hear it. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.